When Rod of God is on the stage, there's nothing better for you to be doing at that time than seeing him, because it's a lot of laughs.
What am I saying? What I'm saying is black and white folks have a different trust level. Y'all gonna talk like I'm crazy. Okay, help you out. You tell me the headline of the story. I can tell you the color if an animal is involved. Okay, Memphis test. Headline: man mauled to death at the Memphis Zoo after he climbed the fence to get a picture with a polar bear. Anybody miss that question? But if I flip the headline, the color switch, I say man injured running from the zoo after he thought he heard the polar bear. You see how this goes? You see, with just a different reaction. When the polar bear do like this, we are already in the car going through the toll booth talking about, I ain't coming back here no more. Hey,
the jokes on the cultural differences, I thought that was awesome, particularly when our country's going through, to kind of just bring it together with laughter. It lets us know that we can all laugh together, but we are distinctly different. So that was awesome.
I can be the spokesman for the dollar store. I go in the dollar store with kingdom authority. I walk in the dollar store like T.D. Jakes. Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. God! God!
I love the song, the joke when he does the Star Spangled Banner. Okay. That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Every family got one member who think he's going to record an album. That's my cousin Ray Ray. Ray Ray went to the game. Can I show you how he remixed the Star Spangled Banner and about got arrested? Can I sing it? He did this. He said, oh, say, oh, say, oh, say, oh, no, say, no, say, can't you see? I said, can't you see? I said, can't you see? I said, see. And then the rapper came out. Listen here, I'm about to break it down. The Star Spangled Banner is going down. I said, hooky, ha, or hooky, he. Somebody, can't you see? See?
What really blessed my spirit was his trumpet playing at the end. I mean, I love that. I think that was awesome.
I know some of y'all are real deep, but I'm not that deep. And I know what I ain't qualified to be. And I know for a fact I could never have been a disciple. I love Jesus. I would have hung with him from a distance, but Jesus did some stuff that sort of went beyond my, level. And I would have stuck with Jesus until he did Lazarus. Y'all so spiritual. Come on, somebody. Who remember the story of Lazarus? Good God Almighty. They say Lazarus had been dead 4 days. And Jesus knew it. And on the 4th day, Jesus said, let us go see Lazarus. Man, they ain't even got no food left. What you talking about? And Jesus went. Now, I would have followed him because I would have been obedient, but I'd have been a day behind them, but I would have went. When Jesus walked up to that rock and said, Lazarus, come forth. Some of y'all real spiritual say y'all be up there speaking in tongues with him. No, I wouldn't. I would have been in the house with Mary and Martha looking from behind the window. This joker right here starting this mess again. When Lazarus' toe come from behind the rock, I would have been on a boat with Paul going to Tarsus, writing Jesus this note. Dear Jesus, it has been wonderful hanging with you for the last 2.5 years. The fish fry with the leftovers was a wonderful thing, Jesus. And when you turn that water into wine, ooh, glory. But due to your latest miracle, I must tender this letter of resignation. P.S. Watch out for Judas. That joker is stealing all the money.
Right. All right. Welcome to Theater Talk Live. And my friend, and I love your comedy, Mr. Rod Allison Esquire.
My
and
brother, my sister. How you doing?
And my co-host, Miss Michelle Saunders. How you doing today, Rod? Happy Father's Day and happy Juneteenth.
Listen, same to you, man, and so glad to be on here and honored with you and Michelle. We go back, Kenneth, a few years back we met, and meeting Michelle today, I feel like I'm home. I feel like making a fried fish sandwich. This is wonderful.
Look, I'm sorry, but I had to turn my mic off. Not my mic, but my camera. I had to turn that off. You're hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Isn't he?
Oh man.
So how did it get started? I mean, were you? How long ago did you start doing comedy?
Funny thing. So I started comedy. My mom said at 3 in her mind. I used to go to church and I would, basically about 5 or 6. I would go to church and I would just watch the whole service. After service, I would go behind the church. All the young people would follow me behind church, and I would impersonate everything I just sing. In school, my brother's gonna get me for this, but my brother Daryl is 18 months older than I am. I had 2 older brothers older than Daryl, and they used to have Red Fox, Richard Pryor, all the albums, and I would hear those, and I would on the back of the school bus charge 25 cents to come on the back of the bus, and I would do comedy shows, and my brother would take half the cut, and so and then he would blackmail me because I use cuss words. He would blackmail me for the other 50%. So because my daddy was a deacon, so I want to shout him out right now for the blackmail. But so I've been doing jokes for the longest time, but professionally it's been about 22 years, 22 years.
All right, and you practice law during the day. So what kind of law do you do?
I do a general practice, so personal injury. I do traffic. I do nonprofits, business setup. It's a general practice, and it's my firm, so I'm able to control the schedule. So most of the time, I'm in court Monday through Friday, or Friday evening, I'm getting on the plane flying somewhere and doing comedy. So it's a busy schedule, but it's cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dad was a deacon. So how did you get your hands on Red Fox? Because that is not clean.
Not at all. So I had my 2 older brothers are much older. Instead, they snuck it in. So Daddy didn't know. Matter of fact, when my daddy found out years later, he about whooped them, and they were grown at the time. So he didn't play with that. But I heard it, and honestly, I would just take those jokes and switch it for like stuff that we deal with in school. I'd be talking about chocolate milk, and I would put Red Fox stuff in. It was the craziest thing. And so I learned how to develop a joke, and then eventually I figured out I need to cut the cussing out if I want to live a long time. So that was how that worked. But yeah, it was Red Fox. No, my daddy didn't know about that. And that wasn't a pretty day when he found out as we were adults. So pray for my family.
Right. So with you being an attorney and you had always had the love for being a comedian,
Yeah.
How did you find the time to do both? Now that you have a family, it's like, it's almost like a classic story that you hear individuals saying, well, I went to school for this, but my heart, or let's say my passion, led me in an opposite direction.
Exactly right. So for me, I actually shared on my social media this week, I believe, I shared the story about when I first came out of law school. I went to UNC Chapel Hill Law School. And when I came out of law school, I received a job offer that was, it was wonderful. And literally, we were broke. I was so broke in law school. My student loan folks was giving me money just to help out with food. That's how bad it was. Just joking. It was terrible. And so when I graduated and got that job offer, I was like, no brainer. However, the position I was going to take, this firm handle medical malpractice cases across the country. And that would mean I would be nonstop on the road, probably 80-hour work weeks. And I had a young infant child at the time, and I had been married to my wife like 2 years. And literally, I went to that building that night, and I laid hands on the building and prayed. And I was like, God, if this is what I'm supposed to do, let me know. I got in my car, and it was just like that. No, decline the job. And I was like, huh? I had to explain that to my wife. I was sleeping outdoors for 2 nights, but and the truth was, it was like, it'll take you away from your purpose. And it was shortly after that I hit a stage for the first time on a dare to do some of the jokes I did in private on the stage. And at that event, somebody was there who had connections. And from that day, it blossomed. However, if I had taken that job with the law firm that would have owned me technically, there was no way I could have done comedy. But because I was working for myself, I was able to control it. And so for me, Michelle, I tell folks, I'll do comedy for free. I don't, but I would do it for free because that's my passion. If I go to court for you, a check better be cut. I love law, but I don't love law. I wouldn't do law for free. And I think that's how you determine what that passion is, what you would do for free. And comedy, I love the sound of laughter and bringing joy, and I call it medicine to folks that need it. I love that sound and that therapeutic remedy for folks that are hurting. And so comedy is my passion for sure. And so it just worked out. God fitted that thing perfectly that I could swing both.
Well, you know something, when you talk about that fork in the road, I talk to my students about that all the time. When I got out of the military, I had a job back here in Raleigh as a postman, but I decided to go to California. And then when I got to California, I got a job in the aerospace industry and stayed in California for 25 years. So sometimes the decisions you make, so what in your early childhood was in what city, or where did you grow up and go to high school?
Kannapolis, North Carolina, down near Charlotte, L. Brown High School. So we were in the sticks. And so that's where we went straight through K-Town, and then went to a Central University in Durham, and then Chapel Hill, and just stayed in the area. And I just love that. I love North Carolina, so I knew I wasn't leaving North Carolina. I'm the baby boy of the family. I was going to stay in North Carolina.
Okay.
And it just fit for me. I'm a country boy, so I'm in Creedmoor, North Carolina right now. We got 2 stoplights. So that's how it rolls.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yes, everybody.
Fine. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
But you also, go ahead,
And
Michelle.
I was going to ask you, like, how often do you, before I would say pre-COVID, how often did you travel to do comedy?
So I try to control that schedule because unlike a lot of performers, I actually love my wife and like my wife. And so, when she's a school teacher. And so during the summer is great because she can travel with me, but during the school year, normally that can't happen. So I'm very selective on dates I take because I'm not going to be away from home, but so much. And I have an 11-year-old daughter. My son is 25. He gets married next month, actually. So he's like,
congratulations.
Thank you. Yes. He's like Deuce's daddy, but my 11-year-old daughter, she's mini me with hair, and she acts like me too. She's going to take over everything. And so I love my family time. And so COVID has been wonderful in a way for me because I've been able to go and do comedy shows just like I'm doing now in the comfort of my own home, and then I can go downstairs and play the Wii with my daughter, or go take my wife out to eat, and we're good. And so most of the months when I really am rolling, I'm probably gone 2 to 3 weekends out of the month, but it's normally I space those out as much as I can to make it fit. But I like to be home immediately the next day. It's just what I can't be away from mama too long, so that works perfectly.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did the choice of church comedy come up? You know, you could be on stage anywhere, but it seems like your schedule, you are always doing church comedy.
Yeah. So for me, it's so impactful. I got my start in church. That's literally, like I said, when I was a kid. But I found that in the church world, there's such a need for an outlet. Let me say it that way, and a balance, because I got two sides here. I have my purpose in comedy that I always say is to prove that you can be funny without being vulgar. So when I do events that are not church, it shocks them when I get on stage for 30 minutes to an hour and I never cuss, I never talk about sex, I never talk about anything like that. And they're like, wow, he didn't even do anything offensive, and he made us laugh for an hour. So that's for them. But for the church, I have to show them you can be a Christian and still have a sense of humor. That's right. Because sometimes in the church world, we become so strict and so uptight that we think telling a joke is the devil. And the truth is, no, laughter is like medicine, and that's Bible. And so you got a lot of sick people in church because they don't have an outlet to laugh. They'll shout all day and they'll run in the floor, but if you tell them to laugh, they don't understand that that's just as therapeutic sometimes as shouting. And so it just so happens that my stage name, as you can see, is Rod of God Comedy. Shout out to my brother, I'll say this, Michelle, Chancellor Rod Allison, Fayetteville State University.
All right.
I say this every time because my name, he came up with the name. So I'm going to say this publicly.
He did.
He tells the whole world, I'm the one who gave you the name. And so when we were thinking of starting out, he was like, well, if you want to basically use your name and also make it clear who you stand for, why not rhyme your name, Rod of God, meaning you belong to God. So no matter who books you, secular or whatever, they know when they get me, I'm coming with clean comedy. And it just flows. But most of my shows are going to be church. Colleges, some corporations, those are all great. But as you'll say, primarily church folks are who call me. But I'm open to everybody as long as you ain't illegal or bad checks. Those two organizations, illegal and bad checks. And that goes for church bad checks too, because that can happen twice. But it's okay.
I've heard some stories. Not from church though, Pastor. I know it's.
I love it. Shout out to your church, Michelle.
Also, listen, we talked earlier before we went on the air about other comedians, and you've already talked about Red Fox. What about you said that you think Bill Cosby is a bad name, but talk about Bill Cosby and how he paved the road for other comedians.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and it's so funny. At the talk I did this morning at the men's conference, I mentioned Bill Cosby, and I said sometimes it's how we do as a people. I literally can separate Bill Cosby into two parts. A lot of people can't do that. But if that's the case, then every president who was president of the United States during slavery, you have to discount them.
That's right.
You know, so you can't just do that. You got to compartmentalize correctly. And so with Bill Cosby, on one side we have the stuff that happened, but as a comedian, I would be lying if I said he was not primarily the main. As a clean comedian, he is the GOAT. Anybody who can sit on the stage in a chair for 2 hours and tell jokes to a packed house and have people laughing the whole time just telling stories. And that's what Bill Cosby did. And so, as I said, Richard Pryor, all of the greats followed that prototype that Bill Cosby laid out. And you can't take away what he did, the Cosby Show, all that's, I mean, come on.
It's still in rerun. It's still
in
rerun.
And so literally there is Bill Cosby, and then there's Bill Cosby, the
man,
philanthropist, entertainer, and the Bill Cosby that whatever is being dealt with, but I won't take away from that. And so for me, study Bill Cosby, and what I developed from him was storytelling. And that's my niche. People see me in court, they see me in the airport, and they'll say, tell me a joke. And I'm like, I don't tell jokes. I don't know a joke that I've like, I don't know what that is, but I can tell you stories, things I've seen, observational comedy. That's sort of the way I flow. And so Bill Cosby is the GOAT when it comes to that. Yeah.
I noticed that because some of the comedians like Jack Benny and some of those early ones, they always talk about they had a joke book where they tell the same jokes, and then after a while it's like what I'm saying, like a diary of, let me just pull this joke out.
Yeah.
But when you tell stories, you got all these stories that you can just pull and according to what audience you got, right?
Exactly right. And the key is matching the stories to the audience. And
so how do you do that?
And I'll be okay. So let me give you a secret. So
hold on.
Hold on, let's write it down.
So it's so funny. So I tell people ask me, what is your gift? You're a comedian. I said, or you're a lawyer. That's not my gift. My gift is communication. In both of those things, my job is to connect with the audience. If I'm in court and it's a jury, my job is to pull on the heartstrings, the emotions, what will register with that 80-year-old African-American mother or grandmother in the jury box, or that 70-year-old white farmer from the country. Mm-hmm. What can I say that connects them? Mm-hmm. And how do I tell a story that brings them to me? So if I've got an 80-year-old or 70-year-old, automatically they got grandkids. So no matter you black or white, you love your grandbaby. So tell a story about grandchildren. That's the common denominator. So that's how I approach law. And when I do comedy, I literally, my son who used to travel with me on the road a lot, and when my wife goes with me, I do not stay behind stage before I perform. If I can help it, I like to go out and be in the audience. So you know how they bring people in like you're big time. I hate that stuff anyway. I'm like, look, let me come out and enjoy the event. So if there's an opening act or if there's a choir, who I want to actually let them see me enjoying them. So I don't look like a hypocrite when I come on like, here I am. No, I wasn't out here when you perform, but now I want you to enjoy me. That makes no sense. But the other reason I do it is because I like to get a feeling of the house. And so the whole time I'm literally watching the audience. Or I have my son or my wife go and they'll say, okay, Pop, I looked at the audience. You got about 80% black, 20% white. Average age, you're going to be in the middle 40s and up. Not a lot of teens, whatever. This is going to be that audience. When I get that information, I then say, okay, tonight we're going down this road. So I'm not going to be telling jokes about hip hop or about, Instagram, because grandma was Instagram, that's my cousin. They don't know what you're talking about. So you have to know who you're dealing with. And that's just true. Right. And honestly, I do white churches and black churches. Okay. And I get a lot of times people get tripped out. They'll say, you did none of the jokes you did at our church. You didn't do any of those at this church. And I'll say, because they would have absolutely no idea of what I'm talking about. If I went to a white audience and I'm talking about Deacon Jones jumping over the pews and rolling in the flow, they're like, who? We don't do that. You can't connect that. And so I have to fit the stories to that audience. And so that's the hard part, but it's what I think a real comedian, you have to put in the work and not just do your jokes and say, well, funny is funny. Funny is not funny. Funny is funny to your audience. And you have to know who you're talking to before you can connect. And so that's sort of my secret. Find out who's in the audience and modify accordingly. Yeah.
So with you finding out who's in your audience and you say 80% are white, have you, prior to, do you attend some churches that has a predominantly white congregation? in order to understand, just like when you were saying when you was younger, you was watching what's going on, and then you went behind the church and said, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Did you have to get that experience?
Oh no, listen. So what I do is I prep for comedy like I prep for a case. So the church, for instance, the church I did for Mother's Day was a predominantly white church. I had to do both services, their Mother's Day service. What I did was I went and I studied every service they had for the previous 2 months. I knew what the pastor's message series was. I knew the praise and worship songs that they sing most. I had all those reference points. When I come to the church and I do my jokes, if I'm doing a joke about music, I say, give me, and I say the song that they sing. Automatically, the audience is like, that's our song. Or I say, if pastor's preaching and I say, I love it when your pastor preached on whatever, they're like, wow, he actually knows our pastor. No, I just studied your church so that when I present to you, I'm not presenting to strangers. So that's sort of my cheat code. I'm telling all my secrets. But I think you have to, and not only white and black, but people think all black churches, for some reason, I think, are confused. They think all black churches are the same. If you saw that intro video, the church that was the huge church that's in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee, I could do almost anything because Memphis is like a melting pot of black folks. You got black folks from all over. So that was just a free night to cut of food. However, on another one of those clips, I was in South Carolina. South Carolina church is a little different than Memphis church. There's more structure. There are more hot button topics you don't mess with. If I'm in a Baptist church that's deep fundamental Baptist, I don't get up there telling jokes about shouting and rolling in the floor. They're like, But if I'm in a church that is more Pentecostal type, I can do the shouting in the floor and they get it.
Right.
So you have to know where you're going, because I've seen many of my fellow brothers and sisters that do this, and they'll come to me, you know, they'll shows, and sometimes they'll open for me, and afterwards they'll say, Rod, I don't think they like me. And I'm like, I knew when you said this one joke, you offended half the church. And once you offend, you will never get them back. And so my thing is always know that audience and know specifically who you're talking to, or you perish or die. Like comedians say, we literally die on stage. And I've only had that happen once, and I choose not to let that happen again.
Now, when you died on stage, was that at the very beginning when you was learning?
No, let me tell you. So, and this goes exactly, Michelle, I like your question. That was a good one. So I'm going to be honest with myself. You can appreciate this, Michelle and Kenneth. I literally, this was probably about 3 years in. And when I said I died a partial death. And let me explain. The organization was actually a Christian club in Greensboro, North Carolina. And the promoter, owner of that club said it was North Carolina A&T homecoming weekend. And he said, that is the audience. The club was lit, totally dark. So from the stage, which I hate, I like to see the audience, but their thing was to keep it low. I could not see anybody in the audience. It was just a spotlight. I thought I was talking to young North Carolina A&T students. So I came out the gate telling jokes about Black college and stuff we go through. It was crickets for 5 minutes. I was like, I know this is good material. I don't know what's up. So I literally did what I call the Bernie Mac. I said, DJ, give me some music. I'll be right back. The DJ started a song. I went back in the green room. I called the club owner back into the green room. I said, who's in the audience? I didn't even know this. I said, who's in this audience? And he says, what do you mean? I said, your person told me this is North Carolina A&T. And he hits his head and he's like, oh my God. He says, I'm so sorry. That's not who's here. I said, what do you mean? He said, this is UNC Greensboro homecoming. The audience is 95% white to 9th. These are white college students.
Ooh.
Once he told me
Ooh.
that, I said, give me one more song. I just need 5 minutes. The DJ starts, did 5 minutes or whatever song, and I should have known because they were playing contemporary gospel.
Mm-hmm.
I came out and then I said, boom. And I went right down the road of what college students at a white school deal with. The audience then was rolling laughing. And it was a big show from that point on. But I tell folks I died a partial death because I didn't
I can imagine
take that step and that's why I do the step now, which is I don't hit the stage until I know who I'm talking to. And it was, but the next weekend, or whatever weekend it was, A&T had their homecoming. They brought me back to the Greensboro, the theater in Greensboro. I can't think of Carolina Theater.
Carolina, Market.
Carolina Theater, and it was with Jonathan Slocum. And when I tell you that was probably perhaps one of my best 15 minutes on stage, it was North Carolina A&T homecoming weekend. The same jokes that I had just done at the club that bombed with that other audience. With this audience, we literally had to stop the joke because they kept laughing so much at the joke. The truth is, it was the same joke. It was just a different audience. And so that's why it sort of applies, Michelle, that it's like, no, that's when I died. I died because I was talking to the wrong folks with the wrong jokes. So,
but you know what? You know that how close it is being on stage in comedy and being in a courtroom, trying to convince the jury. It's, you know, the thing is that it's performance, right? I mean, you have to know the jury, right? You have to know who the makeup of the jury and know how to talk to them so that they can. And it's the same when you walk on stage. You got, if you got the wrong jokes for the wrong audience, you did die a death, man. Goodness.
Kenneth, I do the joke about, no, it's not a joke, it's the truth. Everybody remembers the O.J. Simpson trial, and people say, who was the primary person who won the case for O.J. Simpson? And everybody always slips up and says Johnny Cochran. Johnny Cochran, before he died, clearly stated the case was won by the jury consultant. If you watch the O.J. Trial, there was a slim white lady on the second row with blonde hair who was sitting just like this. She was the national leading jury consultant in the world, basically. She basically was the one, when they were picking the jury, they would turn around and she'd look and nod her head and they'd say, get them off, or she'd do like this. They were looking at her. The jury consultant was why OJ got free, because they had someone who knew for Johnny, for these lawyers, these groups of people will be open to them. If she had picked a different jury, Johnny Cochran would have lost.
Yes.
And that's
if the glove don't fit, you got to quit. I mean,
them sisters on the jury heard a preacher when they heard that, they heard
that's right.
And they were going to church. If he'd have done that to an all-white jury, they would have said, why did he rhyme that? What is that? They would have been offended, but he knew who he was talking to because they picked the right jury. So that's, I wish I could pick my audience in comedy. That'd be wonderful, but that's how I approach when I do juries. I've got to know who I'm talking to.
Yeah. Okay, we're on the night of a performance. It's like an hour before, okay? So what do you do to prepare before you hit that stage? Tell us what you do. Yeah, this ain't no secret now, right?
What audience first, Kim? We already got that tip.
We already got the big secret.
So we gotta give them that. So wait, we gotta give them that. So you have 75% Latino and 25% African American.
Okay.
Gotcha. So if it was 75% Latino, 25% African American, what are life events? And so for both sectors, family is very important. So I would go down the road about family. Mothers, you can't go wrong with mama.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy might be in the equation, he might not. Mama's in the equation. Everybody loves their mother. Mexican, Latino, Black, mama. The worst gangster love his mama. So I would find the familiar thing. And what happens is, it's like getting a shot. When you go, they draw blood. I use this perfect analogy. It's like drawing blood for me. I find the vein. So when I'm on stage and I start down a road, if I feel them going with it, I stick with that until I can get no more juice out of that joke. So I've had, I know I'm going off here, but this might help. My longest show in history was 2.5 hours straight, nonstop. Baltimore,
Wow.
Maryland. Never forgot this. It was the day after Michael Jackson died.
Wow. Yeah.
It was probably about 2,000 folks in this church in Baltimore, Maryland. The day after Michael died, and this was 100% black church. When I got on stage, I literally had to deal with the elephant in the room.
Right.
And I told the musicians, get ready for what I'm gonna do. Just flow. And for 30 minutes straight, we went down from ABC 1, 2, 3 to Beat It, and I was doing the Michael Jackson impersonations, and the audience was like gone. For 30 minutes, I did.
I wish I could have seen that.
And then it was like, okay, now I go into my show. I kept 30 minutes of Michael Jackson because that was the vein that was for that night that you had to do. And so if I'm in a show with 75% Latino and 25% black, once I find that vein, I just stick with it. The audience lets you know where to go.
Right.
And sometimes I'll set up a joke and I'll say, how many know about such and such? If I don't get a response, I'll say, okay, me either. Go to the next thing. Until I get a response that, oh, yes, we get that. So Latina, I'm now here's the truth. Black folks and Latina have a couple things in common. Dollar store, Dollar Tree. We love it.
Yeah.
We all
Yep.
go to Walmart. So I tell Walmart stories, stuff that everybody can get with. We all have that one uncle that owes us money.
That's right.
That we don't claim. We all know about bad chaps. And Latino and black all believe in whooping when it's necessary.
Right.
So as you're doing those jokes, their side, the other side, and the other thing we have in common, we both have the best parties.
Yes.
Weddings,
Yes.
after party at our weddings don't do nothing. The Latina brothers and sisters have the best wedding parties. They do. Days. Black folks, we go on to work the next day. They go 2 days. I'm telling you the truth. And so I have Latino friends, and I'll say, hey, talk to me. Talk to me. What's going on? Tell me about what's going on right now. What's major? And it is, oh, boom, boom, boom. I take that information, and then every audience appreciates when you've done your homework on them. So that's right. They feel like, oh, wow, somebody gave him some inside information. He wouldn't know that unless he had done the work. And so I go down that road and I just ride it until I can't ride it no more. So Michelle, that's what I would do. But my wife jokes and says, an hour before a show, I'm not doing anything. I literally, if I'm not ready by then, it's time to go home.
Well, meditate.
Yeah, I don't meditate. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm a little different in artsy people, and maybe y'all can help me with this.
Yeah,
I'm artsy, and so even how I study when I was in school, my wife, we met at Central. It used to drive her crazy. My brother Daryl Allison, another shout out to Chancellor Allison. We were roommates for 3 years undergrad.
Chancellor.
My brother Daryl is methodical. He would get his book bag, go to the library, and he would go at 5 o'clock and come back like at 11 at night. I mean, he needed silence. He was methodical. Boom, boom, boom. Me, I cannot study without distraction. So I have the TV on, the radio on. I'm studying. I can be talking on the phone and I'm studying. But for me, I'm better with gaining information distracted. So when I do comedy, it's the same way. So I don't prepare like that. I've already done my homework. It's just a matter of when I hit the stage, it's going to happen. And so before the program, I'm looking at TV, I'm watching reruns or something, I'm eating, I'm chilling because I've done my homework, and it's just like I don't want to get too technical. I just want to hit the stage. And so it's a little different, but that's how I usually prepare. I don't.
Well, I think as an artist, I don't think that's any different. I think Ken can maybe touch on, because even for me, when I write, I have to have background noise, like, you know, whether it's, and I'll be, it'll be dependent on the mood. Some mood is jazz, some mood is hip hop, but as long as there's some background noise, that's when I have my best writing. And with writing papers and stuff like that, it was like, oh, I got this in the bag. And next thing you know, I'm done. You know, so I get it. Or even if I paint, yeah, I need some background noise.
Wow.
Because I think it helps your creativity, you know, for you to channel in whatever your talent may be.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So trust me, I get it.
Michelle, you broke.
Well, listen, I used to. Yeah. I was in Dance on Widow's Row by Sam Art Williams in 2003 at the Rod Allison Theater. And I don't come in until the second scene. So scene one, as it ends, I'm standing, I come through a door, right? And I'm just breathing, I'm pacing, I'm just, you know, getting it together. But then when my cue comes and I open the door and I come out, the light hits me, and as a performer, you just gotta love it. I just like, I'm ready to go now. Let's do this, you know.
I love that analogy, man. That's real.
Yes.
Real. Yeah.
But talk about his branding and his marketing, because he got a great website, and he does a lot of good marketing.
Listen, I appreciate it. My shout out to my graphics company, graphics.net. They have looked at me from day one, and that's very rare to have a graphics artist who does my website and all my stuff. The stuff behind me, that's all him.
Right, exactly.
He's working with me right now to do this. I'm doing a COVID tour, post-COVID tour, called Vaccinated, Pre-Prayered, like the word prayer, pre-prayered, and I Ain't Scared comedy tour. And that's a nice way of telling folks, okay, I got my shots, bring me to your city. And so the branding for me, I've always been my own. I've never really had a booking agency. As a lawyer, I can do my own contracts, so I can save that 15% that I have to pay somebody else. No one can speak for me like me. And so the branding part, now that's tough. As y'all know, that's another job. But I'm very protective of the brand, because as you all know, somebody doing something wrong representing your brand,
right?
It's almost like I don't want to say like my children, but this is a baby that I grew over 22 years ago, and I've nurtured it and grown it. I don't just put that in someone's hand to say, look out. Right. I don't do that. And so for me, my branding is me. And I put the time in because I think you have to now in the age of social media. I just wish I had social media back when I first started. Right. It would, you know, but it is now. You have to adjust. And we all saw during COVID, if your branding wasn't tight before COVID, you struggle bad because you have to have what you call it, internet imprint. You got to have some kind of way that people know you exist, and the internet can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And for me, it's just been years of trying to, any kind of way I can brand, I try to brand it as long as it makes sense, and it's worked pretty good.
You know, that's why we started Theater Talk Live, because we haven't done a play. You know, Agape Theater Project, last play was in 2019, I think. It was Ethel. We did the Ethel Water story, and then we were supposed to do Crowns in 2020, and in March of 2020 that's when COVID hit.
The whole world shut down.
Yeah. So how did you do with law and with your comedy? How did that affect you?
So I'm going to say something, and I give God all the glory for this.
Amen.
Believe it or not, 2020 was perhaps my best year. Sounds
Mm.
easy. I'm just being honest with you, and I can't explain it, but I literally had folks. Well, I can say it. It's okay. I go travel, and people always trip when they bring you to their city, and they sometimes fuss about, well, what's your fee, right? And they'll say, we only want you to do 30 minutes, as if you're going to just transport from your house to the stage in
Right.
New York. And I'm like, no, I got to go to the airport, go to luggage, go through TSA, get on the plane, do a layover for 2 hours, get on another plane, get to your city, get to the hotel. I'm a hostage for 3 hours at the hotel to the showtime. Go to your show. I'm going to stay the whole event. Get back to my room, go back home. It's going to take 2 days out of my life. I can't get back. And so when you pay me to come, I have to put all that into the equation. So that's what I was doing, before COVID. COVID, I had situations where in front of a computer screen, I made just as much money talking for 30 minutes than churches paid me to come in person.
Wow.
It blew me away to the point that I was like, this is spooky. On the law side, because I have developed relationships with the courts and certain individuals, we had virtual court, and in my area, they used me as the guinea pig to try it. And so my clients' cases were getting done virtually. So what would have taken me going to court and being there for all day, I was finishing like 20 cases in like 5 minutes virtually. And it's like, boom, okay. And I'm in the office with a jacket and a shirt and shorts.
Shorts.
and to me, I give God the praise for that. It blew me away. And at the end of the year, my wife and I looked, we were like, what just happened? And we did, and it was lower overhead as well. And so it was like, this is different. And so for me, COVID wasn't as bad, but also it goes again, I have put in the work on the internet side to where my law office is very visible on the internet and the comedy is very visible. eBlast, I had built my database up over years and purging that database and making sure it was fresh and I've got the right contacts. So when I would send out an eBlast, I'm not getting a retention rate of 1%. I'm literally getting to people who are the decision makers because I invested in time and had my office invested time. And so all that work benefited me during COVID. And so for me, it was in the midst of a pandemic, it blew me away that it just worked. It worked.
Yeah. I know that, and I will agree to you on that, just coming from a performing and fine arts department, where what we typically would do when we bring in an artist, the artist would then have to do a master's class because it is, our students are the center focus of them coming.
Right.
And so with COVID, even though COVID happened and, Ken has been able to attend some of what we had were master classes. So for COVID, the whole series was just master classes. And being that most artists are doing what we're doing now, sitting home, and they're looking for opportunities. But we were able to grab more artists that we couldn't have during COVID, to the point it caught so much attention from other institutions that our numbers were increasing, which then to the point saying our department chair was like, we're going to have a master's class series. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm for COVID because we have to stay relevant. You know what I mean? And like you said, even though COVID-19 was an unfortunate situation and experience that we just in this time wasn't expecting, but there was still some good in that we were able to reach not only our students, but the community from all over as well. So COVID it taught us a lot of what we can do with our talent, with our craft. Like you were saying, you can do, everything that you do as an attorney from online, whether we put on performances from online, whether we can have live shows as we can say hybrid. Now we can sell tickets for you to watch it online if you can't meet us in Durham, or you can't meet us in Fayetteville, but now you can buy the tickets. You get what I'm saying? So I think, COVID, I'm like this, if you wasn't paying attention, then you just missed the boat at the end of the day.
Wow.
Yeah. When she had Lamont Rucker on as a guest, for her master class, it was like 100 people on that podcast.
We also had, it was a lot. Lamont Rucker, Brayley Evans, a dear sweetheart of mine. We also had Nicholas Smith, who's that activist and an artist, and he's been known through a lot of celebrities talk. We was able to get him just from across the country. Who else we have? Romeo Johnson, the vocal coach for The Voice. I mean, like, we had some of everybody. It was just a matter of picking up and reaching out saying, hey, we're HBCU. Can you do this? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, for real?
We got to do this at Central, right?
That's awesome.
North Carolina Central. But listen, before we go, we got to talk a little about politics now. Come on. Okay. What do you think about Juneteenth and Black Lives Matter and what's going on in politics?
Yep. So let me tell you. So for me, I'll say this nicely. I'm a student of politics. So my late father, I was on the political. He used to be chair of the Cabarrus County Black Caucus. So my pop the joke used to be, you didn't get elected in our city unless you came and sit on the front porch. And that was my pop. And so my brother Daryl sort of went down that road as well in politics. I used to love politics, but then they do background checks, so I had to get out of that. Sad but true. But anyway, so for me, I'll be honest, Kenneth, I'm real big on not symbolism, but change.
Change, yeah.
And that's the trick. So a lot of people, if you're asking me, so I'll be honest, I know what it is to give me showpiece legislation as opposed to go piece legislation. And and so for me, right, you'll give me a holiday, but a holiday doesn't cost you anything.
That's right. No, nothing.
But if I say, listen, we want to allocate this many billions of dollars to police reform and making sure that nationwide there's a mandate for body cameras, and if body cameras are not activated, you lose your job immediately. Well, wait a minute. Hold on.
Can't do that.
How about if we give you one holiday and 2 foot stomps? Yeah, I mean, this is what happens.
Right.
Sometimes we leave the table too quick.
Take your hand off the ball. Don't watch the ball.
Yeah, and if you study the history, so you asked me this question, so I'm gonna try to be nice.
No problem.
So here, I'm a student of history, and if you really study the civil rights movement, I'm talking about the effective civil rights movement of the 60s. They were master strategists, and I think that's what we're missing now.
Right.
We got a lot of folks that are good with sound bites. Martin Luther King Jr., God bless him, he was great, but people forget that there were people behind Martin Luther King who were the strategists, who would say, hey, Martin, go to Memphis this week. Martin, don't touch that issue. We know it's hot button, but it doesn't benefit the overall cause. Even though they're saying you should do this, Martin didn't take every engagement because every engagement wasn't good for the big picture. And so I think, a lot of times now, cut on your cell phone, something happens, we jump and run and make that. And it's like, wait a minute. Rosa Parks was not the first woman of color to sit down on the bus.
Yep.
That's right. That's
Rosa
right.
Parks was the best option to make a national statement because you could find no flaw in Rosa Parks. So you put Rosa Parks, the quote unquote guinea pig for your movement, because who's going to argue with Rosa Parks? But what we have done in this generation, we jump, I think, sometimes to causes so quick without analyzing. Do we need to really put the whole artillery behind this? or do we need to look at the big picture? And for me, I would like to see reform really happen and a strategy in place to where, God bless the marching, but what are you marching for? What is the end game of this march? Never do a march unless you have a objective for the march, because otherwise, I mean, we've been marching for years. You know, what are you going to hold the people accountable and hold their feet to the fire for real change? And so, I probably said too much. I apologize.
No, you didn't. I think that Biden is missing it. He should put together a group that plans these. You know, the Republicans come out with these sound bites, and we never have a answer for them. Or we don't like you saying strategy. There should be some guys in a room or women in a room cooking up strategies to help move stuff. But it's like we always react to stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But then a lot of times we don't question the purpose of the action. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, so if we do this, then what's next? And so when you ask those questions, sometimes you don't get an answer. You get this dance around or this filler to satisfy, like, hey, we gave you this. Okay, thank you. But what comes next?
There we go. And I'll say this, and I won't take up your time, but as a lawyer, Thurgood Marshall, hands down, was my GOAT. And when I was at Central, Julius Chambers, the great civil rights attorney, was chancellor. And they used to call me Little Julius because his wife was from Kannapolis. And so they used to have me over for spaghetti. And that was my man. And he was such a blessing in my life. And I used to have this conversation with him because I love history. But I use this as a tool just to lay this out. So people think Brown versus Board of Education happened because in 1954, all of a sudden, white people got a conscience, and it was like, you know what? Yes, we need to change. No, Brown versus Board of Education was part of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund's long-term strategic plan. They started with higher ed because they knew it wouldn't be as intrusive to have grown students have some black folks there. So they said, well, we got that done. And then they said, now let's go here. And they kept chopping the tree down, setting precedent, so that eventually at the end game was desegregation. Right. But people don't get it. That doesn't just happen. There's a strategy that sometimes is painstaking, but if the end game is solidified, we got it. My concern now is we have sound bites without an end game.
Right.
And
so this is what I was trying to say. If he has a bunch of people in a room, call them a secret society producing strategy. You know what I mean? Just strategizing, because that's what Republicans do. They get one sound bite, and everybody in the whole world is saying that one sound bite, and all of a sudden a lie becomes the truth. You know, it's like,
listen, study the playbook.
Yep.
Well,
listen, we're running out of time, but talk to us a little bit about how you can advise people to get into what you do, being a comedian.
Well, first of all, make sure you're funny and establish that with no, I'm just being honest. You should have at least.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's really funny. Make sure you're funny.
Am I good? I mean, American Idol, we see it every time, right?
Right.
And singing like nobody told you before you came on the show that you can sing. You had spent all this time and money to come out here for Simon to tell you you're horrible. You should know you're horrible before you come out to California. So if you're going to do this, I think you need to make sure you put in the work and verify that what you do is something that can be done professionally. There's a difference in being funny and a comedian. I'm not the funniest person in my family. I have an uncle in Florida that's way funnier than me. But if you put a mic in his hand and put him on the stage, he's going to freeze up because he's not a comedian. Right. So you have to understand being funny and a comedian are two different things. That sounds crazy. So that's number one. Number two is be ready to invest in yourself. When I first started comedy, really trying to promote it, we were broke. I took my first check, and we spent my whole first check, and we were months behind on bills when I did this to invest and do a national launch. It was a year later that an organization booked me that paid me the money that I invested in one show. But wow. I had to make that step to invest in me. I didn't expect mama, daddy, nobody else to do it. If it's my gift and my skill, you should be your number one investor. And don't be cheap. I'm the most frugal man in the world. 75% of my clothes come from the thrift store because that's just how I roll. But when it comes to my business, I am not cheap. I will spend money that I need to spend in order to be effective. So those are the keys. And get you a team. And when I mean a team, people that will be a sounding board for your material, people that will help cover you in prayer and also cover you and let you know this ain't hitting. I have folks that will tell me, Rod, my wife is the worst and my son is even worse. I'll do a show and I'm like, what was it? They'll say, you were 8 tonight. We've seen you do better. You need to stop going down side roads. You had them going and then you kept talking that too long. Cut it. Learn when you're never despise that, especially from people that have your best interests at heart. And so I think those are the things you put in place before you jump into this and go out and say, I'm going to be a comedian. Because in the age of internet, we got a lot of folks that will put up videos and it's like funny videos. And they're like, I'm a comedian. I'm like, no. You do good funny videos.
Right.
And getting on a stage with a mic. There's no do-overs. Well, on stage. If I bomb a joke on stage, I can't say, no, they just heard you and they booing, get off the stage. So that would be what I would say. Anybody who's going into this, make sure you're funny and be ready to invest that money. I sound like Jesse Jackson in here.
Right. Any final thoughts, Michelle? Well, we want to thank you for taking time with us tonight, and we want to end the show with a couple of your videos, just real short. One is of you playing that trumpet. Oh, it is so good that you end our show with this. But I'm going to have everybody go ahead and go to mute.
Wait, quick question: Where did you learn trumpet though?
Wow, you're gonna get me emotional. So my trumpet goes back to 4th grade, 5th grade. My father, as I said, passed away 6 years ago. He was my #1 fan. So my brother played saxophone, I played trumpet. When my dad bought me the trumpet, we didn't have a lot of money. And he told me, when I buy this trumpet, if I do it, you better master it. If I invest it, do you want to play trumpet? And I said, I want to play trumpet. I was scared of getting the beating, so I learned the trumpet real good. But I became to love it. And then when I was at North Carolina Central University, I was in the jazz band, and I was one of the featured soloists. I had an old trumpet, and my dad at the time, basically said, if you come up with half the money during the summer job, we'll invest and get you a top line trumpet. So the trumpet I play, even to this day, is a horn that my dad and I purchased together. That's been about 25 years ago, and so. So that's one of the reasons why I never let the trumpet go, because my pop invested in me, and I worked at a 3rd shift job to make that money for that horn. So the horn is like almost like a connected to my late father. So I love the trumpet. Yeah, I love the trumpet.
Wow, that makes it even special. And happy Father's Day to you.
Yes, happy Father's Day.
Same, Kenneth. Thank you so much.
Okay, so everybody go on mute.
You got it. Thank you so much. My daddy whooped so good, we brought him an award because I just believe you honor where honor's due. My daddy believed whooping was a religious experience. Seriously. My daddy was chairman of Deacon Board, and when he whooped us, he called us in the room and dressed up in a shirt and tie. Put on Mahalia Jackson, read a Bible verse dedicated to what you did, and closed the Bible and then said, would you like to have some words?
My oldest brother said, don't whoop me. But I'm going to see him again. Why you do that, Daddy? Why you do it? So my daddy would bring you in the room and whoop you. My daddy slipped up. And I said, God, I got to have something to get out of these whoopings. This man whooped too hard. My daddy is around 5'11", 300 pounds of solid man, former military. Yeah, he can kill you accidentally. So my daddy called me in the room, and I found out my daddy loved three people. I found out he loved Jesus, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. I couldn't talk like Jesus. I wasn't trying to talk like John F. Kennedy. But I slipped up and got an 8-track of a speech of Martin Luther King. I was 8 years old. God gave me that wisdom. And I said, the next time he whooped me, all I got to do is turn into Martin Luther King. God give you wisdom, I'm telling you. My daddy said, there's something you want to say before I whoop you. I turned my back on that man, and I did these words. I said, it has come to my attention that you desire to beat me with the belt of oppression. The same belt of oppression that was used on my forefathers over 400 years ago. But Daddy, before you beat me, let me say one thing. Let your baby go free. Let your baby go free. Thank God Almighty. Let your baby go free.
All right, man. What a way to end the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Wow. Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
God bless you.
Yes. God bless you.
Thank
See you later.
You got it.
You're
God
welcome.
bless you. Thank you.